I have been literally banging my head against the wall trying to design a combat system for Project Bloom. Every time I come up with a new idea, it often contradicts something I previously designed, forcing some changes, which then causes another aspect of the design to be reworked. I'm then thrown down a wormhole of design iterations to find myself in a different galaxy far from my original destination. What was once a turn-based RPG turned into this action turn-based hybrid thing that barely resembled what I originally set out to make. Game design is hard as and here's why. In the words of Mark Brown, oftentimes game design is the foundation upon which all other parts of the game sit. This is an absolute truth and has become even more apparent during my development journey. Game design is the blueprint for your game, and if you have a crappy blueprint, you'll probably have a crappy game. However, designing is not just an important role, it's a deceptively difficult one as well. This is due to game design being a juggle between numerous interconnected parts and having to balance those parts. Making a change to one aspect of the design can often have a snowball effect on other systems and your overall balance. Imagine if in Mario Bros, Mario had a double jump. You can probably see how that would fundamentally break every level in the game, since the levels are designed based around Mario having a single jump. In the novel titled You by Austin Grossman, there is a section where the main character, who is a game developer, goes to a job interview. One of the questions was, if you added a button to Pac-Man, what would you want it to do? On the surface, this is a simple question, but when explored in detail, it illustrates how interconnected a game's design can be. One random idea could be giving Pac-Man a short dash button. Doing so would allow Pac-Man to move faster while also dodging ghosts more effectively. To keep the game balanced, designers may need to increase enemy movement speed. But increasing movement speed may cause the enemies to move too fast for Pac-Man's base speed, causing further speed adjustments. Additionally, you might have unforeseen issues with the enemy AI not behaving as you expected, since for the most part they generate their paths based on Pac-Man's current position. Pac-Man is a simple example. Games in 2023 are far more complicated. In the game I love to talk too much about, Octopath Traveler, players are tasked with exploiting enemy weaknesses to specific weapon types in order to break them. Each character can equip different weapon types to ensure that the majority of your team can always hit at least one of the enemy's weaknesses. Now imagine if instead of having access to multiple weapon types, party members were locked into one weapon type, and that was the only attack type available to that specific party member. This significantly changes how players will interact with combat. The immediate effect is that breaking enemies becomes much more difficult since your attack options are limited. Additionally, players will have to carefully consider which party members to bring into battle to ensure they cover the right weaknesses. Since team composition became much more important, the game may have to show the player a list of potential weaknesses they would encounter during that stage. Imagine playing a game like Pokemon where type advantage really matters, but the gyms aren't locked into a specific type, and you didn't know what you would face walking in. Now, some would argue that that would be a more fun experience, and I wouldn't disagree, but from a design point of view, knowing what type a gym will be allows the players to prepare the right team for the challenge. Without it, designers would have to ensure players have access to a large variety of Pokemon early on in the game, or you might find yourself fighting Whitney's Miltank without a fighting type move. Keep in mind, however, that neither solution is right or wrong. It's just a choice that needs to be made, and the game should be balanced and designed around it. So by changing one design element, we immediately went down the rabbit hole of other design considerations. However, change isn't always bad. Problems in game design can often lead to creative solutions. In our example, locking party members into one attack type really forced the players to start considering party composition. And to compensate, we considered showing the players what kind of weaknesses they'll expect in that encounter. Well, what if instead of showing them what enemies they should expect, what if we allow them to change party members in the middle of a battle, similar to games like Final Fantasy X and Persona 5? But remember, game design is not an isolated bubble from the rest of the development. It's the foundation that everything else sits on, and when you shake the foundation, you shake everything else with it. Adding a party switching mechanic is a cool and fun idea and might be the right idea for the game, but it will also affect the programmers who now have to go and code in that system, and potentially the artists who have to make animations for that system. Each time you change the design, you spend weeks if not months redoing the inner workings of the game, which over the course of a development cycle can take a lot of time out. One of the major reasons Project Bloom has taken so long to get where it is today was because of the frequent change to the design direction. Up until 2 months ago, the battle system was a turn-based system where players were given a certain amount of time to do a number of actions. However, my most recent combat design switched from strictly turn-based to more of an active time battle system, similar to what is found in the Final Fantasy XIII series, but with players being able to freely switch between characters. The switch from turn-based to ATB single-handedly pushed development back by at least 1 month. Not only did I have to rework all of the code that made the game work, every unit and enemy had to be redesigned for an ATB system, all of the skills had to be adjusted, the damage over time effects had to now work on a timer, the flashy particle and lighting effects had to be reduced for readability, the brake system needed an overhaul, enemy AI needed to be redesigned since the core systems changed, and numerous code reworks just to make sure the game wasn't crashing if an enemy died in the middle of an attack animation. I mean, the list really goes on. All of that just because I wanted a faster paced combat system. Okay, so game design has a bunch of moving parts and can be challenging. So what do you do about it? Well, the answer is comically simple. You pick a direction and you stick with it. At some point you need to lock in the design and build a functional prototype to share with people. Share this prototype with a core group of people that are really interested in your project and also can provide meaningful and constructive criticism. Because ultimately, it's the players who decide if the game is fun, not the designers. With proper feedback and playtesting, you can start making real, proper changes to the design. Believe me, you might believe you have the golden design on paper until you give it to some players and their relentless words crush all your hopes and dreams. But this is such a necessary step to avoid chasing the perfect design that never existed. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It's really appreciated and it really does help. Additionally, you can also support me by wishlisting Project Bloom on Steam. I will also really appreciate that as well. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.